Welcome to another Minot Talk here at the Dakotan. I'm Jonathan Starr, and I'm joined by Miranda Schuler today.
Hey, Jonathan. I'm super glad that you called and asked me to join you today. So.
Absolutely. It's been a while. I don't think you've soloed some with Kyler. I don't think we've ever soloed before.
No, I don't think we have.
Yeah.
I always enjoy coming on though and just, talking about things that I find interesting.
Yeah.
Not everybody does. So
For sure. Yeah. No, I always enjoy having you on. Few things that happened. GOP convention, of course, just wrapped up in Minot. Of course, I'm sure most of North Dakota has seen stuff about that convention because there was some interesting things that came out of it. We tried to cover the whole thing. You can go to mydakotan.com, click GOP convention. That link is still up there. It'll be up there till next Monday when we replace that link with our election guide.
I just want to commend you. I think you guys did a great job. I've been watching a lot of the speaker videos. I really appreciate the fact that those are up and available for people to watch. So thanks for doing that for us.
Do appreciate that, and also shout out to the convention. They allowed us to get some access there, and Jeremy Olson at 241 Inc. Productions, they did the production for the entire event, and we were able to get the video and do whatever we wanted with it. So
that's awesome.
It's been awesome. One thing that we're working on, we start with house cleaning stuff before we get to the fun stuff, okay, is at mydakotan.com. We're trying to create a database for all the podcast episodes, and it's in process. So you can go to mydakotan.com, click Minot Talk, and begin to see all the podcasts. We still have more we're adding in there. I think this is the 128th episode.
Oh, wow.
So of just Minot Talk, so that's not even the other podcast. But we've heard people like, hey, this person came on, I can't find the episode or whatever. So we're going to build some filters in there so you're able to find the exact episodes that you want if you want to go back 6 months or whatever it is and find that episode. So that'll be interesting. Looking forward to next Monday. City Council. Of course, then you guys will be at Commission on Tuesday. But State of the City with Mayor Mark Jansen. That's going to be fun. It's going to be at 4 o'clock. It's going to be at the City Council chambers this year. I enjoyed it when there was an off-site venue, but it's on lunch break and people have to get time to go. And let's be fair,
there's cost associated with that. Yeah.
Yes, and budget is a huge focus right now. So I get it. Going to the council chambers is still going to be good. So I look forward to hearing what he has to say on Monday at 4 o'clock. That'll be live streamed as well. So should be a good time. And then on Tuesday we'll have Mayor on here to talk about it some more. And I think we're going to have a special co-host for that one too. So we'll have a full, well, I guess we could get one more, but for most podcasts, it's a full slate right there. So
I'm always bummed on those Tuesday mornings when I'm in commission meetings and I cannot participate or listen live. So
this is probably a mistake that we made way back when, because we probably didn't take that into consideration. We probably should be at a commission meeting. There's a lot of stuff that you guys have going on there. You guys have a different style, of course, because you guys are the manager for the board county, right? And that's been well talked about. But still, there's some important things that come up in those meetings.
There is. The other thing is, I know you guys talk a lot about the long city council meetings. We have some commission meetings where, we have an early 8 o'clock meeting for one of our committees, and then the commission meeting starts at 9, and I've been there till 4:30.
A full day.
Yeah, there's some long days.
How do you manage your schedule that day?
Well, for work, I have really good staff.
Yeah.
So they just know I'll get there when I get there.
Yeah. You just can't plan any meetings or anything that whole day, and then at noon maybe it changes.
Yeah, I don't plan for much. If something is on my schedule, usually Candace at the office will make a call to somebody and say, "Hey, Miranda's just not back yet." So
gotcha,
and it works out good. I'm really fortunate in that manner. So
for sure, we'll talk probably at some point. We have a packed episode actually. There's a lot we're going to talk about, but I'm sure eventually we'll throw some commission question at you. Let me finish this up. This Thursday, we're going to be joined by Megan Invick. That's going to be good. She's with Americans for Prosperity. Looking forward to that conversation. We're launching the election guide Monday after all the signatures are turned in. If you're wanting to jump in, it's coming up to the date. I know at least one candidate, and I know others know more than me, but I know at least one candidate that hasn't formally announced has been collecting signatures. So it'll be interesting to see what the actual slate of candidates are. Last thing. If you're interested in texting, some people said that they would prefer to text. If you're interested in texting into Minot Talk anytime, you can do that. The number is on the screen. It's 701-971-7272. Well, I grew up in an area where 971 was the area code, so that's why I chose that number. So it goes back to my roots. But very good. You were at an event over the weekend. It wasn't the GOP convention.
No.
It was something at Minot State.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the Women's Leadership event.
Sure. So MSU for 3 years now has done a women's leadership event in March. Last year I attended. My daughter, who is she's a member of the leadership classes at Minot State, she had asked me to attend with her, so I did, and it was great. The level of keynote speaker they brought in last year was just amazing to me.
Okay.
And then this year, in I think it was December, they reached out and asked if I would be one of the speakers and presenters.
That's fantastic.
Which, is an honor. I'm always willing to talk about leadership, and if anybody's ever looking for a mentor or has questions, I would love to help them with that. I've mentioned it many times. A lot of the reason I serve in the manner I do is to model the type of behaviors that I'd like for my own daughter to see and my own kids to see.
Yep.
So I was excited to participate in that. It was great. There was college students there. You don't have to be female. There was community members there. I think there was a lady who even traveled from Williston.
Wow.
Yeah, and the keynote speaker this year was just like out of this world. They fly in these just remarkable speakers. So I was probably the C team.
No, I don't know about that.
But it was really great, and it kind of refilled my cup per se. So
Sandy Zimmerman, Jessica Ackerman, and Miranda Schuler.
Yep, yeah, like I said, cool. C team.
No, I don't know about that. That's pretty awesome. Okay. It's a bummer because I didn't know about it, but obviously it's kind of a bummer because of the scheduling, I'm sure, because there's another big convention going on. So that probably drew away a little bit of stuff from that, but still.
And when I committed to it, I didn't know we didn't have a date for the convention, and MSU had done all their printing and advertising. So, I probably would have gone to convention. I've been active before and gone to convention, but this year I did not.
Yeah.
Because my commitment was at MSU, and it worked out well.
Probably worth it. Yeah. There was a lot that went on convention too. So interesting. Okay, I'm stumbling all over. You hear me, but I'm thinking about asking more questions on that. I'm going to change my mind. We're going to go to something else. There's a big topic that you and I have been talking about back and forth past day or two, but it came out of, it goes all the way back into the 2010s, long time ago. Okay.
And earlier.
And earlier, it does.
But 2010s,
is where a lot of things started happening. But it used to be that we had this system in Minot where there was this ward system, and we had all these people on council, and it was way too full and way too many people, and it wasn't generally liked. At the end of it, at one point it was liked, I'm sure, but at the end of it, it was like too many people on council. So to fix it, we went away from this ward system, which meant that there was how many wards were there?
There was seven wards at the time,
throughout the city, and there was 2 candidates from each ward.
Correct.
And so the idea is that every part of the city has fair and equal representation, just like they do at the state level. Mm-hmm. This is a very common thing in politics. But then it got taken away, and now it's just 6 at-large bids for city council. And you're probably going to be able to add a lot more perspective to that. Mm-hmm. It's a very simplified view of this. But that's basically
Part of the reason, there was a group of people, they called themselves the Make Minot group. Mm-hmm. And it, I suppose we should go back a little bit. There's 2 different kinds of structure for city government. You've got commission style, which generally commissioners hold a portfolio for the departments that they kind of, I don't want to say oversee, but that they oversee essentially.
Yeah.
And then you have the council style government. And even if you look in the rule books, basically the council style government is usually a ward system. So you have councilors who represent a ward or an area, correct? Mm-hmm. Anyway, the challenge with that is when you vote, you would only vote in the ward that you were in. So,
gotcha.
And voter apathy has always been a thing.
Right.
Always. We see that every single election, right?
Yep.
The premise behind making these changes was to try to engage more citizens so that they would vote, right? So they could vote on every single council member. And ultimately, it was there was a petition brought in, and there was a question put on a June ballot that ultimately passed. And so we dissolved the ward system, and now it's all at large. Now, I was serving on council at the time. I was elected in 2014. And I had proposed an alternate plan in the event that the Make Minot movement did not pass.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I didn't want it to pass, but I kind of thought ward representation is not a bad thing because you don't necessarily want all of your elected officials living in just one area. Think about it from a state perspective.
Yeah.
You could have all of your elected officials living in Bismarck and Fargo and maybe a couple in Minot. Is that going to serve, your more rural areas as well?
No.
Probably not. So, I had proposed a plan to split it into 4 wards, essentially north, south, east, and west. You'd obviously have to make those lines based on population, and then have 2 representatives from each ward. So you'd have 8 council members and then a mayor elected at large. Had the Make Minot movement not passed, that was what I was going to move forward with. Obviously, it passed, so we didn't move forward with it. However, I believe we're seeing some of those issues that I brought up back in 2016 kind of coming to fruition because yesterday I had done just a quick map. I'm kind of tech.
We'll get on screen.
I don't want to say tech savvy, but I can make things, right?
Yeah.
So I quick made a map and every single elected person, you can find their address. You can go in the GIS and find my address if you wanted to. So I just quick made a map of Minot showing just some landmarks so people could get their footings, and then marking where current council members live. The mayor I marked in yellow. Current council members that are not going to be up for election, re-election I should say, are marked in red. And then the council members who are on currently but are not running are the green. And what you see is there is absolutely no representation on the north side of Minot. Every single member of our council and our mayor all live in the south. In fact, 3 of them live within about 4 blocks of each other, and 2 of them live within about 4 blocks of each other as well.
Right. And not even necessarily friends that you would say our friends are not necessarily living next to each other. That's not what happened. It's just random chance that it happened that way. And it's not a positive thing.
I don't think it is, no. Simply because, all of us live in a certain area of town. We drive the same areas. We maybe go for walks. We see things. We know who our neighbors are, that kind of thing. Your neighbors probably know if you're an elected person. If they have a question about something as simple as, needing a variance for something, they could reach out to you.
Right.
And it's not saying that the council members that we have now don't have a familiarity with the northern part of the town. However, you're more apt to advocate for the areas that you live in and that your neighbors contact you on, right?
Yep.
Doesn't mean somebody from the north can't call somebody who is living in the south and serving on the council. They absolutely can, and they should. Same thing when we had the ward system. I was elected from Ward 5. Very often, I would get calls from all kinds of different wards, maybe because they knew me personally or professionally, or they just felt they wanted to call me. In that instance, I would usually let the ward representatives know from their ward that I was helping somebody and maybe bring them in if we needed to. But I think we have a problem. And I don't know the address of, we don't know for sure who's going to be running right now. If we did, maybe I would have been able to put some more information up there.
Yeah.
But I think we need more people representing specifically from that north side. And I wonder if it's not time for us to talk about making some changes, just like Fargo's doing. Fargo's talking about going back to a ward system because of the same issues.
And so if we went back to a ward system, obviously before 7 wards, 14 members, big council.
Too much.
Too much. What would actually be, and I know that you have a proposal, you actually have something that way back when. So what does that actually look like if it got implemented in Minot?
So I still, I'm not a lawyer.
Yep.
I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn, so I can't answer all the questions. But, I still think that a 4-ward system is probably, beneficial for Minot. We're not that big of a town that the 4 is going to be too much or even too small for that matter. I think 2 representatives from each of those wards. Now, the kicker is election time, right? So how do you elect those people? Do the wards elect? Because then you lose that whole at-large focus, which I think is actually beneficial, and I think it does engage more citizens. What I'd love to find, and again, this is just kind of spitballing ideas, is a way to create a 4-ward system that would be elected at large. So when you'd go in, you would vote for 2 from Ward 1, 2 from Ward 2, and so forth.
I do like the at-large portion.
I do too. I think it engages more voters, and it engages more people to listen and pay attention to what's going on around them.
Even if you, and this may have some bad things that would come from it, but even if you had a system where there was 4 at-large and then 4 direct representation, even something like that, because I could see...
Yeah, that would work great too.
As things progress, if it was all at-large, then you can still technically stuff the wards, right? Mm-hmm. So... because it seems like no matter what, and even the system that I presented, no matter what, someone's going to be like, all right, so this is what we're going to do. You're going to move here. You're going to move here. You know, like you can always find a way around it.
True.
And so that'll be that. But at least there would be some control where you can't just bring in $1 million and try to be like, all right, we're going to get all 8 guys on or 8 people on and run with that. Mm-hmm. But I think that ward system would be really good for Minot.
I think... I commend the folks that came up with the Make Minot movement.
Yeah.
I think that movement did, in fact, engage a lot of citizens, and it has brought, our voter apathy down just a little bit. You know, unfortunately, I still think that we have issues there. But when we look at representation, I think we are lacking a little bit. And like I said, Fargo's going through exactly the same thing right now. So I don't think we're alone in this. And maybe nobody else has noticed it. Maybe I did just because it was something that I had thought up in 2016 as well.
Well, I think that there's a huge changeover going on in council right now. I came on late, and I should have looked this up. I was thinking about this the other day, and I never ended up looking it up. I don't even know who was on council before Blessum Samuelson, and it was Burlingham, it was Padragula, and there's one more person. I can't remember the third one.
Oh, you're putting me on the spot too.
I am.
Here's the crazy thing, okay? You and I are engaged.
Yeah.
And many of the citizens that listen to or the people that are watching this podcast are also engaged.
Yep.
But the reality is the majority of people have no idea. They don't know who the council members are. They might know the mayor because the mayor is maybe on TV a little bit more or something to that effect. But that was one thing when I originally ran and have run subsequently for different positions since then. The amount of people who have no idea who or what they do is amazing to me.
Yes, Carrie Evans. There we go.
Yeah. Oh, yep, Carrie Evans.
Yeah. No,
so of course somebody's going to come in and
help us
save
out.
us. Yeah.
Thank you, Alderwoman Olson. Yeah, for sure. Among current city council members, none live in North Minot. We showed that on the little picture that we had. Isn't poll workers a major part of that problem? And I don't know if that's a problem or not.
Poll workers is a problem. It's a problem for every election, finding people to work. And that's where we talk about previously when we had all these different wards. It's the same thing with, the legislative districts. You've got the 3 and 5 and 38, the different districts. They have to be given the right ballot, right?
Yep.
So, you do run into some issues, and we used to have several different polling places, and things have kind of whittled down for a myriad of different reasons. But again, I'm not saying we're going to do this. I just throwing the idea out there because it's something we talked about in 2016, and a problem that I'm seeing. But
I'm sure
I think there's a way to do it. Like I said, that if we did it at large, I like the idea of at large. But then you vote for 2 in one ward, you vote for 2 in another ward, and so forth. And keeping that at large, I think, would be the key to this. So.
Yeah, I think so. So be interested to hear what other people's feedback on that. Do you feel, basically the question is, do you feel like you're properly represented by the current city council in your area? You can't get into the different demographics of stuff. That's a whole nother conversation. But just in your area in town, do you feel like you're properly represented at city council? It'd be an interesting question, an interesting survey to be done there. Yeah, it'd be cool if something came from it. I think that, though, with the change of city council, it's starting to become more... I think it's not that it's the people that are on council. I think it's that you're starting to have a change of council that is even more separated from when there was a ward system and when there was that. And now we're losing... It's like... I've counted it, but it's almost 40 years of experience off of council, or something like that, or almost 30 years of experience off of council this election cycle, and it's just that's a lot of experience that you're going to lose all at one time, which is you just lose a lot of the story of Minot right there.
And when you're newly elected, you're literally drinking from a fire hose, learning as much as you possibly can. there's always going to be a learning curve. It doesn't matter if it's, an elected position or a new job that you take. There's always that learning curve to learn the nuances. And, local government is completely different when it comes to budgeting and it comes to the function of a lot of things are, you're planning your budget 18 months in advance for a whole year. You don't know what's going to happen, right. And you're kind of guessing on a lot of stuff. And whereas, if you run a business, you're kind of changing things on the fly, or if it's your family household budget, you kind of have the flexibility to make changes right away. You don't have that with regards to your government. So there's definitely a learning curve to it. So it's unfortunate when we lose the experience, but at the same time, it is really important to engage new people. So, when we're talking about representation in different areas, when you look at Minot, the majority of the growth that we see has been on the south side. And one could argue that the south side is more desirable for retail or whatever you want to say. But if you don't have somebody championing,
yeah,
you know what I'm trying to say.
I know exactly.
Talking
I'm not
is hard
try.
on a Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
For the north, then you don't see the types of growth up here, which is unfortunate because it's equally as important. I mean, look at the Sunset Boulevard, but not to throw up contentious things.
I love that topic.
If you don't have somebody that's really advocating for the north, you may not see the north show up in a lot of things. And there's 50% or more of the people of Minot live in a north designation. And I've mentioned this before, and I said strong words about it before, which is surprising coming from me. But it is the north side of town is the first impression that our Air Force Base gets. Mm-hmm. And we have so much talk about, this needs to be done for the base. This needs to be done for the base. This trying to build that relationship there. Well, development on North Hill in that area of town needs to be done for the base because we're making those people drive 30, 40 minutes to get to a restaurant. Yep.
That's insane.
Or if we ever were to go through something like, the flood of 2011 again, where the city was split. In addition to the base, the north side of town is generally the welcoming area for our Canadian friends, who we may not see as many of right now, but that's sure to turn around at some point.
Yeah, it is.
And they are a critical part of our economic well-being in the community as well. They spend money down here, they come down and they stay. And, overall, they're just really good neighbors to have. So
for sure. Yeah, I said that there's not really a good restaurant this side of 4th Avenue. I might have said Burdick, but 4th Avenue. What I mean by good restaurant is like an actual sit-down restaurant. I like Spicy Pie. I like Worst Case Scenario. I like a lot of the places there, but there's not that formal. Someone said Bones Barbecue. It's like, okay, that's getting closer. Yeah. I still view that one not quite there, but it's getting closer.
Well, that's right on the middle there.
Yeah, it is.
I miss the old rolling pin. You probably never ate there.
I did. When I just moved here, we went there a couple times. Yeah, and you used to have, I think the name on it right now is Valhalla, but it used to be Sevens.
Yep.
And some people enjoyed that. Yep.
Yeah, that was a great place to eat. Now, from a city standpoint, the city can't bring in restaurants.
Correct. I agree with this.
You're going to need entrepreneurs.
Yep.
You're going to need people who have experience because restaurant businesses are very, very challenging.
Yep.
Very, very economically challenging to maintain and run. But you need to have the infrastructure. You need to have the people.
Yeah.
And I think we're starting to see some of that, but I think there's room for growth on the north.
Right. You're not going to lead with a restaurant. I mean, the McDonald's on North Hill looks like it has done well. I don't know.
Well, they placed it next to a high school. That was kind of good.
Really helped.
That was really good.
Yeah.
Good placement.
Exactly. And without the high school, though, it wouldn't probably have made sense. And so you're not going to lead with a restaurant for sure. There's other things that need to happen first for sure. So interesting stuff there on the ward system. Moving on in that vein, let's jump to city council. I went and I think it was 2 weeks ago. Realized 5 minutes before show I wasn't going to have a guest. And we went solo for an entire hour, almost an entire hour. So that was an adventure. And we talked about city council, what you need in order to be a city council. And one of the things you mentioned was fresh ideas. I was like, all right, let's talk about fresh ideas. You've been in this for
a while.
Yeah, around civic politics for a while. So you've seen ideas come and stay, maybe not go, because a lot of times they are the same ones. And part of that, I think, is fair, because at the end of the day, city's going to have to put out a budget, Ward County Commission's going to have to put out a budget. there's certain things that are just going to stay the same, right? But having a fresh perspective on how to tackle those things, I think, is probably where you're coming from on this, and maybe not. I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say on it. So with that, what does for the city council race, or that's the one that looks like it's going to be most competitive. We're going to go through the races, but so far that's the one that looks like it's going to be the most competitive out of the local races in Minot area. What does Fresh Ideas look like?
So a couple different things. When it comes to, I'm a citizen of the city. I'm not on the city council, but what I really like to see is diversity on my city council for several different reasons. People are always so hyper-focused on the national politics when the reality is your local politics directly impacts every single day of your life, right? So I like to see some diversity within my council, and that's kind of things that I look at. I want somebody who maybe has a strong focus on economic development because those types of things are important to me. I want somebody, and myself personally, I'm very focused on the public works side of it. Your police, your fire, your public safety, your roads, your water, the main things that we need to have functioning well in this community to basically thrive and survive, for that matter. I want people who are focused on those things. I would love some out-of-the-box thinkers who can come up with some ideas and try to bring those into fruition. I'll throw another contentious thing out there. Way back in the day, I think it was 2015, Mayor Chuck Barney then had tasked me with chairing an ad hoc committee that would talk about bringing in automation to garbage and the potential for bringing in recycling.
I see.
And so this is something, and a lot of these topics are cyclical. They just keep coming up, right? They just keep coming up, and you just keep talking about them, and then they'll go away for a few years, and all of a sudden they become a hot button topic again, kind of like the liquor license issue or the library mergers right now. These things have happened over and over and over again, and it's just a matter of getting them across the finish line or finally putting them to bed and saying this is just not going to happen until the next time it comes up again.
6 years later.
I want council members who are out-of-the-box thinkers. I want them to be slightly diverse. I respect every single one of the voices that are on there right now. But I don't want an echo chamber of all of the same voices. So with regards to Fresh Ideas, I don't know what those are. I mean, every one of us has probably got some really great idea. And I'll give you, for instance, again, back when I was serving on council, we were going to be closing a bridge by Oak Park, which is going to dramatically impact traffic on that 4th Avenue corridor, which there's quite a lot of traffic. And we were talking in a city meeting about how do we notice this out to the public. And, obviously the newspaper, the radio, the TV, these things have to be notified. And, I had put a Facebook post out to my friends and followers and said, hey, guys, if we're going to close a road for the city and it's going to be closed for, say, 2 months, what's the best way for us to let you know? People said, well, mail us a letter. Well, shoot, when mail is going to run almost $1 a letter,
it's expensive.
It's not probably going to be financially advantageous to do that. Come knock on our doors. Well, we don't know when everybody's going to be home. And one of my friends said, why don't you get one of those lighted signs and put it out 2 weeks or 3 weeks before you're going to close it, saying this road will be closed on these days. Because if I drive that every day, I'm going to see that sign. And I thought, man, that's brilliant. It's the simplest thing, right? So at that time, I think I had called Dan Jonason and Jason Sorensen and said, hey, guys, can we do this? And they were like, yeah. And now you see that happening. And that literally came from a resident who just... Speaking
up.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody else had thought of it. Or maybe they hadn't told somebody.
Exactly.
So when we're talking fresh ideas, I don't know what those ideas are. Maybe somebody watching right now has some really great idea. You just need to reach out to somebody and let them know what it is so they can talk through it with you. We're
going to keep going down this. Couple comments that came in was this is going to go back to the ward system. One, Mark Larson says half the people do the work. Burnout is a factor. I think if
it's 100% right.
If at the 14, I think so.
I honestly, so I don't even know if it's half, to be honest. When we had 14 on council, I would say, and I am not, discounting anybody's work ethic, right? We're all busy. But when we had 14 of us, there was probably 5 of us that did a good majority of the work, right? I remember coming to a meeting and knowing that there was about 2 members who literally were looking at their packet for the very first time as they sat up at the dais. So it doesn't matter if you have 14 or you have 6. You're always going to have people who carry a little more weight. It doesn't matter if it's in your job. I mean, everybody can relate to this, right? So you're always going to have that dynamic, which again makes me think 8-person council with the mayor might not be a bad number. Not saying that we need to make changes, but
right.
You're always going to have that dynamic. So good point, Mark.
Terry, as a lifelong resident of North Mine, I feel that we have better representation over the past 2 years than we have in the previous 20. So that's
great.
Good. Yes.
That's great.
Totally agree. Something needs to be done about the north side of town. All right. Fresh ideas. So I have a question on this. When you look at the budget, I'm gonna go to the pillars of what people are forced to run on. Like if you said, yeah, I don't care about the budget, there's probably a group of people that vote for you, but there's a general consensus that would be concerned. When you bring fresh ideas to that, do we need fresh perspectives on how that's being done? Is there more out of the box? And I'll give an example. The fire chief does a good job because you'll have her come. She finds grant more than any other department. Maybe it's just because it's the fire and there's more stuff accessible, but I feel like more than any other department, she's always coming with, there's this grant that we can get. There's this funding. We'll have to do a match here, but there's this other funding that we could. She's always looking for other measures of funding. And in my mind, those are fresh ideas that are like, hey, at least these are options that we can look at that might be a good fit for us.
Chief Kelly is exceptional at that, and so is Chief Fry, for that matter. I think we have the right people in those positions right now.
Yep.
I don't think that it doesn't happen in other departments. It just maybe isn't brought forth as much. And I think inherently as citizens, we all have a heart for our public safety employees for sure. Not saying that we don't love our garbage men and our street crew as much, but there's definitely a heart for your public safety employees. Chief Kelly does an amazing job, and we're very fortunate to have her in that position. And that's just another indication of why it's so important to get the right people in these positions. When we're talking about fresh ideas, it's great to have these conversations and talk about different things. I'll give a shout out to Alderman Paul Pittner. I think he is probably at present the best out of the box thinker that we have on the council, and I really respect that about him. And I'm kind of sad he's leaving.
Yeah. I
totally understand it, though. I get that. But he always comes up with it. Anytime I watch a meeting, I'm always like, man, where did he come up with that?
Yeah.
So, I respect that. We need more people that think like that. And maybe that's that entrepreneurial mindset.
Yep.
Not everybody thinks in the same manner that he does, but I really do appreciate that. So again, I think it comes down to diverse people, finding the right people to serve in those positions, and realizing the conversations are not bad. Having conversations about ideas are not a bad idea. It's important to happen.
That's one thing that could be missed by the current council. There's been a lot of darts that has been thrown at this council. You guys are fighting. You guys are this, that, and the other thing. We have amazing conversation that comes out of the current council of opposing ideas that gets worked through. And maybe in some ways it can be better. Maybe sometimes people go long-winded. There's those things, but it's not only 2 or 3 of the people doing the work.
The other benefit to having those conversations where you've got different viewpoints is that it engages the public.
Yeah.
So if in the years where it was easy and we just were able to say yes on a consent agenda at almost every meeting, which wasn't necessarily true, but you didn't have engaged public. So the conversations that happen, aren't negative. They're not designed to create 2 sides against each other. They're designed to have a conversation, talk through some problems, find some type of resolution or a common ground so we as a community can continue to move forward. And in the meantime, it's engaging our citizens, which is also a good thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. This makes sense. So fresh ideas probably best encapsulated by the idea of you have your, in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have your core pillars of what you need to run on, or not that you need to run on, but you need to be focused on. Like if you get to council, let's still have a balanced budget. Let's still have, and we can go through those things. But also beyond that, what are you going to talk about, and how are you going to bring a new perspective to economic development? A tired topic right now. I think people almost get sick of talking about economic development. But how are you going to affect that differently than maybe what's being done, or enhancing what's being done? and things like that.
You know what the hardest part is, though? For the majority of the candidates that we're going to see,
Yes.
they're all new.
Yes.
They have not served in this position. They don't know what the role is. One of the candidates was talking about, I think, walking paths and the ball diamonds on North Hill, where those are the park board, not something that's even controlled at all by the city.
Right.
Again, that's where this whole learning curve comes into play. So what's going to end up happening is we're going to see 3 people on council who may not have the experience and the understanding of exactly what the parameters of the job is yet. So I always find it interesting, and granted, I was in that position at one time myself. When you hear the candidates talking about things, you're going to hear things that are hot button topics. You're going to hear property tax. You're going to hear economic development.
Yep.
You might hear things about some of the topics that are, kind of contentious right now, like liquor licensing or the library merger.
Yep.
You're going to hear those things because they invoke emotion in the voter.
Yep.
And they'll engage people, right? So, they're going to happen. What I would recommend to the voters is get to know your candidates. Have an honest conversation. Go to one of the meet and greets and talk to them about what's important to you and get a feel for what their personality is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if it's a topic that the candidate is running on, ask them to drill down, try to drill down to 2 or 3 levels on it. Because I can run on, economic development, that's a huge priority. But what does that mean to me?
Does that mean you want to spend, city and city taxpayer dollars to build a Sam's Club?
Right.
We don't have the money for that.
Right.
We can't do that.
Exactly.
How do you entice those developers to come into town? Mm-hmm. Is it by using some of the economic tools? I know everybody hates talking about it, but things like, a TIF.
Yeah.
It's almost a bad word, but sometimes those tools are necessary to help entice some of this growth that people want. People want an eating establishment on North Hill.
Yeah.
How do you get a developer or a business owner to locate themselves on North Hill? Maybe you give them an additional incentive to build on North versus on the South side.
Yeah.
Now, again, nobody likes the word incentives, but the citizens also want those things to happen for them in the different areas of the community. So
for sure, yeah. I think I'm at the point where, and I've said it before, so you've already heard it, but most likely economic development goes right now might be the best. Right now, the best way that economic development could be done in Minot might be through infrastructure development to help some of that stuff get in place, so that way the other people might be able to come in on ready lots and stuff.
So when you talk about infrastructure, so a lot of people don't realize cities do not build roads usually. They don't build curb and gutter, light districts. They do if they have to come in and do it after the fact or as part of a development contract.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the developers do those things. And then the price of the land or the price of the lots is based off of the cost to develop that area. And I think back on areas like, for instance, Stonebridge Farms, which is just on the road. When that area came to be, it was just after 2011. The developer came in, and I don't believe that they had lighting districts, or I don't know if it's curb and gutter. I'm trying to remember which ones it was. But the developer didn't have to put those in. So later on, the city came in and did it, and then had to do specials, which nobody likes special assessments either. And people got very upset about that. So it's not like the city goes in and makes roads and businesses come. It's the developers that do those things.
Right.
If the city has to do it, then they act as a bank where those of us who are tax-paying citizens, we're the bank for the developer or the landowner to have those things done. Do we want to be that? Do we want to start focusing on the specials side? Mm-hmm. Personally, I don't necessarily love that idea.
I don't love getting to specials. And what I mean by it specifically is finding places. I mean, you have... So the exceptional health care, or the name of that hospital is going to be something like that. And they paid to bring the infrastructures to the other side of the road. Mm-hmm. If the city had done that, is there a chance that they would have gotten somebody there 5 years earlier? I have no idea. I don't know what the conversations are, and I know there's no answer to that question. But my question, the point of my question is this: is there places where we could strategically impact infrastructure that's going to be better for the city of Minot, that if we're going to be in economic development and we're going to do those things, that we can invest in areas that would be better for this city of Minot, period, and not for specific projects? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think there's room for that discussion.
Yes.
But the other side is, how do you fund it? And I believe personally that type of thing, economic development, should be funded through sales tax, use tax, not necessarily from the taxing standpoint of property owners, for that matter.
Right.
So right now we don't have a mechanism for that.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out where the money's going to come from if you want to do these types of things. And I think that ultimately kind of brings the conversation down and helps you find your solutions. But talking about it without knowing how you're going to fund it, it'd be like, from a personal standpoint, talking about buying a house. Hey, I really want to buy this house. I like this house. I need 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, but I don't have the means to pay for it.
Yeah.
You have to have the means to pay for it before you actually can put together a plan to make it work. So,
got a press release while we were on here. Minot Park announces Roosevelt Park and pickleball courts open for the summer of 2026. So Minot Park District is beyond excited to announce the Roosevelt Park pool and pickleball courts will be open for the summer of 2026 after a disappointing closure in 2025 due to the flood mitigation project. The Minot Park Board is committed to reopening the pool for our community. So,
that's going to make a lot of families happy this year.
Yes, that's pretty exciting.
That's great.
Okay, switching gears a little bit, we'll go to one more thing and then we'll talk election. And that is something that's come up, and from what I've heard, is pretty much not going to happen, but I figured you're on the commission. You'd know more than I do. Library merger.
Sure.
It's back in the cycle.
So that's a challenging one. So I'm learning a lot.
Okay.
That's one thing. Every time I get elected to something, I learn so much, and I just really appreciate that. I think that's my favorite thing about serving in public service. With regards to the merger, I'm on the committee that is discussing this, but each library has their own board, and they kind of operate, I don't want to say independently, but it's a different structure, right? And what's interesting to note is the Ward County Library is only paid for by county citizens, not city.
Okay.
And the city library is only paid for by city citizens, not county.
Mm-hmm.
So based on my understanding of this, in the event that a merger is to happen, it's not something that the council, the commission, or either library board can just decide. It's going to have to be something that comes to a vote of the people. And most likely it's going to happen in November. If we're going to bring something forth to the voters, you're going to see it in your November ballot. And it's probably going to be something where the county residents have to vote and the city residents have to vote on similar questions, and it has to pass for both sides. Is it going to happen? I don't know. When we're looking at cost savings, both library directors brought us some information on if we merge them, trying to figure out if the employees become city employees or county employees and all of the different nuances to that. The biggest challenge I'm seeing right now is currently the Minot City Library is out of space. They need more space for the amount of employees and visitors that they have from what I'm seeing, and trying to close the Ward County and moving it over there. How do you fit more people in with a smaller amount of space? So that's where the biggest cost savings is. And to be honest, the cost savings from what we're seeing originally is maybe $25,000 a year, maybe $100,000. It's really not a lot of money. And you'll lose one of the facilities. Another option would be to keep both open, but then we're not saving any money.
Right.
Keep in mind, I've heard so many citizens in the city saying, well, I'm paying for both. No, you're actually only paying for the city library.
Right.
County residents are only paying for the county. So if we merge them, both citizens, county and city, will likely pay for both. So how that will play out, I'm not sure. We're still working through some of those nuances. I'm always thinking about how we make this work. We have space constraints. I didn't get to the last meeting. My father-in-law passed away. It was the same day as funeral, so I obviously couldn't make that meeting. But I listened to it. And at the next meeting, I may bring up a discussion point, and this is breaking news for when we have our next meeting. But, looking at keeping both facilities, not sure if there's enough space, but moving the children's library portion maybe over to the county side, because there's always been that separation of the children's and the regular library that could fix some of the space constraints potentially. Again, the discussion will have to happen, but then that means we keep both facilities still.
Right.
So not necessarily a cost savings. If the citizens want to save money, it's probably not going to save money to do this. However, we're having these discussions, and ultimately, before anything happens, it's not going to happen by a vote of the council, the commission, or either library board. It's going to happen by a vote of the people. The county residents will decide if they want to do it. The city residents will decide if they want to do it. If either one of those two groups says no, then it's not going to happen. My guess is it'll probably come up again in 6 to 8 years to talk about, but that's kind of how things are moving.
Yeah. It's interesting. about how each taxing subdivision pays for it. But it seems like the only way to actually save money would be to scale back, which may not be an option, but we're talking about just around the idea of saving money to actually cut back.
And from the county side, people just think, well, there's a library in the courthouse. Not necessarily. There's a bookmobile,
right?
And if you
That's
are,
the big part.
If you are a rural kid or a rural resident, that bookmobile is a big deal. I was a bookmobile kid myself. There's also a library up in Kenmare, which is part of. Granted, it's funded a little bit differently. That one wouldn't change at all, from my understanding. But how do we make this work that is best for the citizens? And if we're looking only to save money, that likely is going to mean some changes in services.
Right.
And while you may not be utilizing the library today,
right,
I guarantee you there is someone else that utilizes it on a regular basis, because those emails are coming in. And, I respect that. I used to be a library family when my kids were younger. We don't go as often as we used to, but that does not mean that I don't think it's valuable.
Yeah, I think that it demonstrates the changing of society in the bigger scope of things, because the library used to be a core part of almost probably not every family, but a lot of families growing up. We went to the library, we found stuff, and now my kids every once in a while go to the library, but the thing that's most interesting, I think, in our family is being able to get the literal digital books and stuff like that.
And that's what the younger people like. So when we were building the Minot North High School, I was on the school board at the time, and they were giving us a tour. The library was much smaller than what I would have expected. And the reasoning was, well, the kids are more into the digital type books.
Interesting.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I like paper. You got computers in front of you. I'm old school, Gen X. So the internet was just coming out when I was in high school. I'm aging myself. Yeah. But things are evolving. So it's really hard for those of us who grew up with these things to see change happen. And it does. It's the same thing. I hate to say it, but the newspaper. Shoot, you used to get the newspaper every single day, and it used to be this thick.
Right.
Now it's 7 pages. You see things changing, or video stores.
Yeah.
You're young.
Right. Yeah.
I remember on the weekends, that's what we did. We went to one of the video stores and rented a couple movies and a VCR.
Yeah.
Get the big box to take home with you, and that is gone now. So with regards to libraries, I think that there's definitely a shift happening.
Yeah.
And those of us maybe in the older generations have a hard time embracing some of that change. And I wish that we had some younger people in these discussions, because I think honestly they're the ones that need to guide that conversation, because they're the ones that can tell us what they really want and what they need.
Makes sense. I remember we used to have, now I forget the name. I thought of it while we were on there, but before Broadway, like there was a budget video? Or is it,
Premiere Video, maybe budget.
There was a video store there.
I just remember Video Magic. That was my
Video
favorite.
Magic. Okay, gotcha.
The 2 locations of Video Magic.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yep. The one with the blue logo and yellow trim. I cannot remember what this is right now, but there's one location left in the U.S.
Is it Blockbuster?
Yes, Blockbuster. Yeah. I believe one location left in the U.S., and that's in Oregon.
Yep.
And it's just because for the nostalgia of it.
Well, and if you remember, what kind of took out the whole video stores was Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix, you used to go online and you'd pick the movies and they'd mail them to you as a DVD.
Isn't that crazy?
And then you'd mail them back.
Yeah.
Well, that's also gone now.
Yeah,
so things are changing and evolving. The library, though, there's a lot of resources. The tool library, I think, is invaluable. The other thing about the library is it serves all populations. It probably focuses on some of that lower income population as well, because it's literally low to no cost to utilize those services, and that's a big deal as well. Very
good. That is an update on the library merger. Moving on to the last topic. Well, the last topic, and that's basically an election roundup. There's obviously, if it's election time, there's big races. There's D3, there's District 5, there's City Council, there's Mayor, there's Ward County Commission, there's School Board, there's Park Board, there's a 0.5% sales tax that's going to be on it. Mm-hmm. I think I have them all there. I probably missed something, but that's the races that are going to go on. So what I want to do is we have, as far as public knowledge shows, all the candidates for these races. Could have missed something. If so, mention in the comments. Would love to hear about it. We'll start out with the district races. So District 3, this is going to be, Actually, this year, District 3 and District 5 are both going to be interesting. I was going to say District 3 might be the most interesting. I think I still lean that way, but both District 3 and District 5 are going to be interesting races this year. In District 3, the reason why it's interesting is the endorsed candidates is Bob Paulson for Senate, Jeff Hoverson and Crystal Hendrickson for House. And then there's two more candidates, though, in the primary. And that's Tim Mahalik and Blaine DeLauriers. We've interviewed both of those here on the podcast already. And we'll interview the remaining candidates that we haven't. Interesting.
That's interesting because Lori Van Winkle was one of the D3 team and did not receive the endorsement this year. So you've got some change happening in D3 on a few different realms. And then you've got, like you said, the two candidates who chose they're going primary.
I think this is the first time. Is this I know that these also went to primary.
I think Andy Maragos did the same thing in 3 a few years back. And Roscoe Striley, maybe as well. It happens from time to time.
But these, what I was going to say first time is the route of not even pursuing the endorsement. Because I don't think that they pursued the endorsement at all. The whole game plan was to go to the primary.
I think they saw the writing on the wall. They knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, that's why you saw what you saw from the state convention. Politics in North Dakota is changing, and it is fractured, whether you want to believe it or not. And if the two sides of the Republican Party don't start working together, it's going to open up a space for a moderate, liberal-type candidate to easily get elected. And it wasn't that long ago that the state of North Dakota was sending Democrats to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So, I think that you have to address what's happening, and the two sides need to really start working together, because if they don't, they're going to start losing some of these seats, which could be dramatically beneficial to one side or the other at the national level.
Yeah.
So with regards to the state level, I think we're always going to stay a very red state.
Yeah.
And, you'll see candidates shift, but it's the same thing that's happening is the candidates who are choosing not to go to the district for endorsement, they are taking the signature route, which is a perfectly acceptable way to do it, to put it before the voters to determine who should be serving. So I'm not surprised at all in that at all.
Yeah,
I am surprised, though, the Hendrickson and Van Winkle swap. That was a little surprising to me.
I was surprised by that as well. I'm told in the comment section that there's District 3 Democrat endorsed candidates as well. I don't know what their names are. Do you know what they are?
Yeah, I think Natalie, I had seen, Natalie McLaughlin is one of them. Now, I don't know who else they are. I know they've come up, District 3, I know we've seen several Democratic candidates. I will say, I think the Democrat Party in the city of Minot, the Souris Valley Dems is what they call themselves, I believe, they are becoming more cohesive and kind of working and I would say maybe growing. Through all of this that you're seeing, the fracture on the Republican side, you just haven't heard as much. And I think the reason we maybe haven't heard as much is because they don't have the friction happening like the Republican side does right now.
For sure. They went through their friction, and now they're coming out of it. Yeah. That's my point of view. And so the Republican side is jumping into that, and I don't know how that's going to work out for them. So I would love to know who the Democratic candidates are. I've used Google to the best of my abilities, even for this, and I was not able to find the endorsed candidates for the Democratic side.
I'm sure somebody can tell us, though.
Yep.
Hopefully, we'll rely on you all.
Yeah, if you do, we'll say them out loud. D5, District 5. This is an interesting one. So, Randy Burkhardt retires from the Senate. So Jay Fisher is switching from House to running for Senate.
As long as he gets the nomination, which if he gets the nominating committee is happening on Thursday. So we'll have some clarity as of Thursday.
And there's a competitor that I don't know if we'll find out if they go to the endorsing convention or not, but I believe it's Jeffrey Holt is running for Senate as well. And I don't know if he's going to go straight to the primary or if he's going through the endorsing process. You have Lauser, who's running for the House.
Yep, recently announced that he would rerun.
Yeah.
And I think this is his final term. With
on that side.
With limits now, this will be his last term. So D5 is going to have to come up with another candidate here.
And they still have to come up with one for the House, which I understand there's always names in the back pocket, but they have not put those out. So I'm sure there's some rumors of who it might be, but they have not put those out yet, which is interesting because,
you have a couple stronger candidates on the Democrat side. You've got Kyle Erickson for House and Zach. And I will say, Zach has run for several different offices. Yeah. He's got some name recognition. He's a pretty strong candidate. Yep. I am a D5 Republican. I have been for many years. So if we don't come up with a fairly strong candidate, there is, a window could be cracked for. And I'm not no disrespect to Kyle. I've known Kyle forever, and I think he's wonderful. But Zach has been at this for a while, so he's probably the stronger of those two candidates.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Those are the two that we know of in District 5. I've heard that there may be a full slate, so there may be a Senate candidate that we hear about eventually on the Democrat side. But that's an interesting one to watch. We're going to do our best to be at that endorsing convention on this Thursday for District 5 on the Republican side, and hopefully see what comes of that and see what happens there.
I'm confident that there will be someone endorsed. I just don't know who it's going to be yet.
Yeah, makes sense for sure. So both district races, keep an eye on those. Going to be interesting. Again, we'll be doing interviews with all those candidates. Some of them we've already done. There's talks of doing a debate on that side, on those ones. If that happens, we'll let you know. We're not sure yet. It's hard with the district ones because it's hard to get people to there. So
it's hard to get them to participate. So we tried to do, I've tried to do a district type, get to know the candidates or something prior to the primary, and it really was not well received by the candidates. Right. They just want to wait till that November. And I get it. It's unfortunate, but it seems to happen.
I think there's a chance in District 3.
Maybe.
I think it'd be beneficial to every single candidate on the Republican side to be in a debate for District 3 for the primary.
I think it would benefit the not endorsed candidates more than would it benefit the endorsed candidates.
But my counter to that is, so Jeff Howerson's a known quantity, but we don't know Crystal Hendrickson at all.
Not at all.
And so I feel like she has done some work with the North Prairie Rural Water. So that's the max that we get to know her basically from the public sphere. But Tim Mahalik and Blaine DeLauriers have pretty strong name recognition based off of their just being in the community for as long as they have. And Tim Mahalik has done some governmental work. So I think it could potentially actually make a little sense. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong.
I think it would make great sense for the voters to be able to hear this.
For
it's just a matter of if you can get the candidates to show. Because we had the same thing with Olson, Wolf, and Ruby in 38, the last cycle.
Yep.
And there was no interaction between two of those three candidates trying to get something going.
Yeah,
so
for sure. Jumping to city council, this is one that we know most about on this podcast because we've talked about it a lot. 6 candidates, 3 seats, no incumbents running. That's just crazy still, but no incumbents running. Excuse me. We have Dave Wiley, Joan Hawbaker, Kyler Cullum, Eric Locken, Nicole Brasfield, and what I've been told is Dave Gibson has declared, but there is a chance that he will drop out before signature day. There is another one that I know of that's collecting signatures, and then there may be more than that.
I heard somebody turned a petition in. I think maybe yesterday.
I heard that the mayor did, but I don't know about the council side.
I think Stephen Padragula.
He did. He finally turned in. Okay, that's the one that I knew that was collecting signatures.
I heard this through the grapevine.
Okay.
Whether it's true or not,
yeah,
I can't confirm because I'm not the one that accepts the petitions.
He'd be the closest to an incumbent we got.
He would be, yeah, and he lives in the north.
Hey, so, there you go.
I'll say this. I served with Dr. Padragula. Politically, he and I are very different. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you that in all my years, I have never seen a council member work as hard as he does. I see him at every committee, and he door knocks. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, simply just because of the amount of work that he puts in. So that wouldn't surprise me if he jumped in again, and he does have some long-term knowledge, so it could benefit the citizens as well. Yeah. There is a couple other people that I am aware of, one in particular that I believe will likely if they have their petition completed, likely announce at the very last minute.
Yeah.
That's kind of my style as well. So I appreciate
I respect
that.
it, yeah.
Who is a very strong candidate. So
Okay, that's very good. So if we have a fresh council, completely in Padrigula, he gets the asterisk next to it because he was, in a weird way, as an incumbent, or in a unique way as an incumbent. What's something that what's a word of advice that you would give to these people that are running for council if they were to get elected?
Oh, for new people?
Yes.
Keep an open mind. Listen to both sides.
Is it true that you get like brought into the dark room somewhere? And you get, this is how I'm
It's
kidding.
not usually dark rooms.
Yeah,
It's usually, hey, you want to go to lunch?
Gotcha.
You get
See,
a
there you
call
go.
from a group and they say, can we take you to lunch? And there's a reason.
Yes.
Right? But, obviously, keeping an open mind and listening to both sides. And then don't go into a council meeting determined that I'm going to vote no on this or I'm going to vote yes. Because sometimes information is presented to you by the citizens that approach or the conversations that basically ensue that may change your mind on something. So you always want to just keep an open mind, listen to everything that you're possibly going to hear. You may have a preconceived notion on what you're going to do with a vote, but ultimately I would tell people, don't make your final decisions until the minute you have to say yay or nay.
What have you found as a good or effective way of collecting feedback from citizens on the topic?
Asking them.
Yeah.
Asking them. So for me personally, I utilize social media as a tool. I work with the public daily in my full-time job. So on any given day, I maybe personally have 10 to 15 people that stop into my office.
That's fair.
And I ask them, hey, this is what we're talking about. How do you feel about it?
I see.
And sometimes their feeling is dictated by information that they have been made aware of wherever they got it, and they're missing pieces.
Right.
And then we have a conversation and they say, oh, shoot, now that you've told me that, I'm not sure how I feel about this. And that's exactly what happens when you serve in those positions is sometimes, there's so much information thrown at you that you have to really digest it and determine what you're going to do with it. But, if you're not in a position where you talk to the public on a regular basis, go out to Cookies for You, go downtown and just talk to people.
Yep.
You'd be amazed how many people are receptive to just an open-ended question and conversation. So
makes sense for sure. Other races, mayor, obviously 2 candidates there. Incumbent, Mayor Mark Janser, and then Josiah Royce is giving it a go again. Have you heard any rumors there?
No, just the 2. And, I'm a big Mark Janser supporter.
Yep.
Again, no disrespect to Josiah. I have a lot of respect for anybody who chooses to run.
Yep.
I would have liked to have seen him jump onto the city council side. I think that would have been a great place for him to start, to kind of get his feet wet and understand things. And I think he probably would have had a little better shot at getting elected if he would have jumped that direction.
Yep.
But again, each person gets to decide what they want to do. And so I have a lot of respect for Mark. I think he does a lot of things. He's a quiet leader. He doesn't jump into the drama, and I kind of like that. So
yeah, couple other races, Ward County Commission. I've only heard of 2 candidates, and they're both incumbents. John Feldall and Jason Olson are the ones that are up for re-election there. School board, we have 2 seats here as well, I believe. I haven't seen many declared names in this race. If you're wanting to run for school board, you should work on that.
I think Mitch is planning to run again.
Mitch will. Okay.
Sabrina, I had reached out to her and asked her. She wasn't sure. I don't know at this point if she's planning to run. The interesting thing about if you want to run for school board is where every other race you have to get the signatures to get on the ballot. You don't with school board. You fill out the packet and you turn it in. So anybody who's considering it can do that. I personally love seeing younger people serve, people that have kids in the system, because I think you've got a vested interest. Not that someone that, like me that has kids that are out of the system wouldn't have a vested interest. I'm a taxpayer. I still do.
Yeah.
But I would love to see some additional parents throw into that race. And again, that doesn't require the signatures. So the reality is that somebody could go down and pick up a packet this week and fill it out and turn it back in again and be on the ballot.
Yeah, and that's That's a very important board to be a part of. The Ward County and Minot City Council get the most attention, but school board is quietly over there making big decisions that affect taxpayers and, of course, affect the entire school system. So,
I would say, having served on all of them, the school board was by far the most challenging. You are dealing with parents, teachers, and students, and there's a lot of emotion involved. And my term was during COVID, so it was probably lighting a fire under all of that. In fact, it was very challenging. But the school board, like you said, kind of quietly works on the backside, but it was probably the most challenging position that I've served in.
Yeah, makes sense. Last board is the park board, and we've heard that the incumbents are running for re-election. Those are Perry Olson, Justin Hammer, and Mike Schmidt. So I haven't heard any other names beyond that. So that's kind of a outlook on your election. Of course, we have the 0.5% sales tax, and we're past 10 o'clock, so we don't have to go too deep into this. But we have the 0.5% sales tax. That's also going to be on the ballot, where the Minot Park board in Minot, obviously the Minot Park board is in Minot, is proposing a 0.5% sales tax to fund some facility maintenance, and some capital improvements. But it's not like it was the first time around where they were trying to put up a new structure or anything like that. That's not what's being done this time. Maybe down the road it leads to something like that, but not currently. So that'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Last time it was a close vote. This time it'll be a full election. So
the other thing is everybody should realize, while June primaries aren't necessarily sexy and fun, and people don't pay attention, they're always watching for November. Literally, it's probably the most important election for you as a citizen in this area. It is so important. So please do not discount June primary time. Please do not discount voting, your right to vote, your ability to vote. Your voice needs to be heard. So
for sure,
make it a priority. And if you don't think you have time, there's always early voting. So there's always time. It doesn't take very long at all.
Absolutely. I thought you were going to mention something else that I forgot, but it was in my notes. That's the property tax credit.
Yes. So if you are a primary resident in North Dakota, today is the last day to file for that $1,600 credit on your property taxes for next year. We're seeing the effects of that. I got my my statement back from my mortgages because I escrow for my mortgage. And my mortgage went down, I think, $122, and I got $900 back out of my escrow account as a result of the $1,600.
Yeah.
I'm sure many residents in the city are probably seeing the same thing, and obviously throughout the state. So we have to apply for that every year, so make sure that you go on and do it, because today is the last day.
Yeah, for sure. Very interesting. Well, it's a good podcast episode.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I hope to come on anytime you'd like me on.
For sure. We'll have you back on. We'll have to have you on to talk more county commission stuff too, because we haven't spent enough time on that stuff, and stuff is going down over there. So appreciate you coming on. Appreciate everyone for watching this episode of Minot Talk. We'll be back this Thursday, 9 a.m. We're going to have Megan Invick on. It's going to be a good conversation. So thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day.